Welcome back to Next Gen Console Watch, our show following all the news and rumors on the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X. I'm Daemon Hatfield, and as always, I'm joined by Jonathon Dornbush, host of IGN's PlayStation Podcast Beyond.
Beyond. Hey, Damon.
Hello there. And Ryan McCaffrey, host of IGN's Xbox Podcast Unlocked.
Happy halfway through 2022, Damon.
We made it, everyone. We're over the hump. We're in the back half of the year now, and this is a good time of year to sort of take stock of the best games that have been released this year, and in particular for this show. Let's look at the best games that you could play on your PlayStation 5 and or Xbox Series X this year. And of course, this topic does come with sort of an asterisk on it, being that the reality is you actually don't need a next-gen console to play this year's best games. They're all available on previous consoles also. However, I think, if you have a new gen console, you're going to want to play it there. It's probably going to be the best place to play it. So here we go. The best games you could play on your new gen console this year. Jonathon, Sony's the only one that has some exclusives this year.
Yeah, they got off the year to a really solid start for them. They typically favor the first half of the year, and certainly though this year we're seeing 2 releases in the fall. But yeah, they both had Horizon Forbidden West and Gran Turismo 7 in February and March respectively. And all things considered, some bumpy launch things that we can certainly talk about when it comes to GT7's launch. But on the whole, both play really well on PS5. They look beautiful. They both take a really great advantage of the DualSense. It was sort of a very good two-pronged attack for earlier in the year. That launch monetization issues of GT7 notwithstanding, definitely not the greatest start there.
Yeah, we can talk about that in a second. But Horizon Forbidden West, incredible game, one of the best open world games I think I've ever played. One of the prettiest looking games I've ever played. Incredible facial animation. Practically zero load times as you load into different areas of this gigantic world. I loved it. I had a feeling it would end up being my game of the year until I played another game that was released shortly after that, which we'll get to as well. So Horizon Forbidden West, incredible. Gran Turismo 7, though, we gave that a 9. And then, like you said, there were some issues at launch. Have those issues been ironed out?
They've definitely been working a lot on it and listening to the community. There were some issues. There was one issue post-launch where it was sort of the game was unplayable for a day because of connection to server issues, and that brought up a lot of questions about always online necessities, for games like that where you can play so much single player wise. That was luckily resolved within that moment, but things like that loomed kind of large over the launch, as well as sort of the high amounts that downloadable cars and things could go for. So it's something that I think they've been working on and trying to improve over time, in addition to, just post-launch updates that are needed to fix bugs and things like that. But, when it comes to actively playing it on the new gen system in terms of its look and feel and everything, I certainly recommend checking out our performance reviews and obviously our original review as well. But you can kind of see pretty instantly both how gorgeous it is, and it's a huge respect and shout out to Polyphony, building off what they did already with GT Sport, which was so beautiful on PS4, to see how much they're even pushing things further with PS5, this being a cross-gen game as well. Really what they've done here to make it stable, to run well, to look so beautiful. And then the way that they really integrate the cars into the DualSense. That's, for me, I am not much of a gearhead, so the very particulars of getting into fine-tuning a car are just not a thing I have a knowledge base for, but it's very immediate how well you can feel the sensations of the car using the DualSense in there for sure.
Ryan, I know you're a big racing game fan, particularly the Forza games.
Yeah.
Forza Horizon 5 was our game of the year last year. Have you spent any time in the driver's seat for Gran Turismo 7?
A little bit, yeah. When it first came out, I did spend a little time with it, and it's just fantastic. I mean, Forza to me has kind of taken the crown as my favorite driving game, period. I mean, Horizon 5 and Motorsport are 2 pretty different games, and certainly Gran Turismo is more of a sim like Forza Motorsport. But the thing that I thought Forza had always done really, really well, particularly since like Forza 4, Motorsport 4, it just felt like it had this soul to it, this love of driving, whereas the earlier Gran Turismo games to me felt a little more sterile in comparison. But I think GT7 has really kind of come a long way towards injecting more of a personality into the all the gameplay, the menus, and just everything about like every kind of pixel within Gran Turismo 7. So yeah, I mean, it's the best looking Gran Turismo game ever made. It's a beautiful looking game, period. And, Gran Turismo games have become events. We haven't gotten a numbered. This is our first new numbered, like full proper GT in Jonathon, an entire generation, correct?
PS4
from 6 to 7.
PS4 was only GT Sport, I believe. So.
Yeah, so these are events, and it's this might be the only Gran Turismo we get for a while. I'm sure it's going to be supported for some time, but they did a great job on it, and it's just nice to have another amazing car game to play. And as Jonathon noted, the DualSense stuff is really, really good in that game.
And not to overshadow it as well, because I know you mentioned it, Damon. We'll obviously talk about, the unfortunate overshadowing that did happen, but with Horizon Forbidden West as well on PlayStation side, I think a lot of the same praise applies to the PS version of that. It looks and runs pretty well on PS4, all things considered, but it is just absolutely gorgeous on PS5. The lighting, the fidelity of the world, and the foliage, and the attention to detail, as you were saying, the just pure level of detail on characters' faces and their outfits and everything is so well done on the PS5 and so immediately visible in the work that they've done. And they've continued to support it with, updates for fidelity modes, things like VRR were put in recently, different scalings for what your preferences are when it comes to frame rate and things. So they're very aware also of like the technical aspects that players care about and have been really leaning into those. But it's also a really great example of the DualSense as well, whether it's kind of like feeling the robots and the way that they're moving or breathing or the sensations there. Just I think the triggers can be a bit debated for people, whether or not they like the pull and the tension there. But I think Horizons is just enough where it gives you the sensation that you're pulling back on a bow without it feeling like you're fighting the controller. So yeah.
Great game. So those are two PlayStation exclusives from the first half of the year. You should definitely check out on your PS5. Ryan, in an alternate universe, we would have Stalker 2 out already.
That's right.
Could very well.
And Redfall.
And could have had Redfall out this summer. In lieu of any big exclusives from Microsoft, what do you think are the best games you could play on an Xbox Series X this year so far?
Well, it's kind of cheating, but not really, actually, is the game behind me, Cyberpunk 2077. We finally got the official next-gen release earlier this year, and the game works. It looks great. It runs great. And this is a wonderful video game. I mean, I've probably spent 15 or 20 hours. I still haven't finished it. I need to get back to it at some point. But it is an incredible world when it actually runs the way it's supposed to run, which, of course, it never did on the original, the last-gen consoles. And we've now finally have official support for Series X, Series S, and PS5. So, if it's one of those games where if you just kind of let it go because of all the deserved bad word of mouth at launch, particularly with the console versions, now's the time. I mean, we've got a bit of a quiet summer, especially on Xbox. So, I can't recommend Cyberpunk 2077 enough, both as a game, but also as a next-gen game experience. So that's definitely one I would call it. And then the other one, we were having a meeting about this, and one game came up that I had to just go, oh yeah, this just a great game that which you might not think of in its name, like that would be beautiful and next gen, but Lego Star Wars: The Skywalker Saga is a gorgeous game. It very much looks next gen. The detail in these plastic pieces is incredible. I mean, it's been a beautiful series now for the last couple of iterations, but Skywalker Saga is the best looking one. The gameplay variety contained within it is great. You can run through all 9 movies, and it's not a monotonous game. There's a lot of gameplay variety to it. It has its trademark sense of humor where it's not afraid to poke fun at its source material. And so, totally family friendly, obviously. So if you've got a Series X, don't sleep on the Skywalker Saga, because it is a gorgeous game that happens to also be an excellent video game to play as well.
Yeah, it's surprisingly a good-looking game. I have an almost 3-year-old son, and we've been watching the Lego Star Wars series on Disney Plus.
Yeah,
and the games now look at least as good as the TV show, if not better at this point, because the TV show is a few years old now. Okay, so a couple things on each platform. The big one, probably the most notable game of the year, is Elden Ring, I think for sure. It's quickly shot up to many people's list, short list of favorite games that they've ever played. I played it. and I loved it, and I finished it. I put like 160 hours into it, and I was surprised at how much I like it because I don't typically like those types of games. I've tried Bloodborne and Demon Souls and Sekiro, and none of them really clicked for me, but Elden Ring was the one for me. Has anyone else, before I go on too much, I don't want to monopolize the conversation, has anyone else spent much time with Elden Ring?
No, Damon, I mean, if you want to just take 20 minutes here, I don't think anyone would mind when it comes to Elden Ring. Yeah, I've played, I want to say probably about 40 or so hours. I have not finished it, much to the chagrin of many of my friends who love it. But I totally understand and agree very much with the praise and the acclaim for it. And it's, I think there are many people like you who couldn't get into past FromSoft games, and this is the one that it did click for them. I was fortunate enough to have gotten kind of into them in the last year or so leading up to Elden Ring. I was like, I should finally give these a try, and having that basis was good, but I do think the game is so wide open and captures this sense of discovery so well that is, I think, in a more innate level, interest level to people, rather than often with these games, it's focused around the difficulty of them, and that's certainly here. But I think the sense of just go experience what you want and pick at this world and see what where you can find things to discover, what surprises lay in wait, what deaths probably also lay in wait, is just such a satisfying loop in this game, and it's so tremendously well built and a joy to explore. So yeah, this is definitely one, especially if you have the next gen versions of it, to have the best fidelity of it. FromSoft, I think, has always prioritized gameplay over the look of their games, so you're not getting, I think, the highest fidelity, assets of any game ever, but you are getting a very beautiful world, a very beautifully art-directed world, and one that shines in so many ways on these consoles.
If you were going to compare just graphics, Horizon is the better looking game, but Elden Ring is just a masterclass in game design, and it's like I've said this many times before. Horizon represents like the pinnacle of your typical modern open world RPG game. And Elden Ring is something that just sort of like smashes that mold and really offers something new and fresh and original and all that. Elden Ring's currently my game of the year.
Yeah, I think, Damon, if God of War Ragnarok had not landed in 2022, we would have seen one of the most just unanimous across the board sweeps for game of the year at every major outlet that we've seen in years, which I know is somewhat a function of a lot of the game delays and things, games that haven't come out this year, but it's also a testament to how good Elden Ring is. And it's not to assume that Ragnarok's going to be as good as its predecessor. We certainly all hope it is. But as it stands now, we're looking at a potential heavyweight showdown and then just everyone else in a clear tier below that. So it's going to be interesting to see, if Ragnarok can live up to its predecessor and be the game we want it to be, and then how those game of the year votes shake out.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting. God of War 2018 being a game of the year in its own right, and then there is such a thing as recency bias. So I don't know, coming out in November, maybe it'll just be more fresh on people's minds when they're talking about game of the year. I don't know, we'll see. A couple other notable games. Jonathon, Sifu is a PlayStation exclusive. There's a PS5 version of that. I've played some of that. I've beaten the first boss. That's as far as I've made it. I like it so far. I've played enough to know that I like it. I don't know to what extent I like it. I don't know. Have you spent any time with Sifu?
I definitely did too. I bounced off it eventually for similar reasons. I think I got up to the third area, and I very much respected and everything that it goes for. I just kind of couldn't. I hit a wall, and I wasn't able to get past it, and was kind of beating my head against the wall. But I think it's a really well designed not brawler, excuse me, but an action fighting game that really, really emphasizes learning its systems and learning the animations of characters and things. And, granted, they have put in extra difficulty modes, both easier and harder for people. So those are there as well for people looking for the challenge or to ease off that challenge a little bit. But it's still pretty tough, even at that easier difficulty. It's definitely one that I think you've got to learn its systems. You can't really button mash your way through. You're going to get knocked back very quickly. But yeah, it's a really well designed and really well executed action game.
Yeah. And then Ryan, over on the Xbox side, a game that was an Xbox exclusive at launch.
Yes.
It's about to lose that exclusivity, but that's Tunic. That's also a really, really fantastic game.
Yeah, also not the easiest game on the planet, but in a very different way. It's a very cerebral game. It's not to say Sifu isn't, but it's I guess you're working a different part of your brain, let's say, with Tunic than you are with Sifu, which Damon, I got about as far as you, and it's just that thing with Sifu. I have not properly invested the time to master the mechanics, but I'd love to get back to it at some point. But yeah, Tunic I did, because I reviewed that for IGN, gave it a 9. It is definitely the shining star on Xbox so far this year, even if it's coming to PlayStation in September, a 6-month exclusivity window. And I highly encourage all PlayStation players to check it out in September, because it is a fantastic game. It is put very, very crudely, Zelda meets Dark Souls. You've got a lot of challenge to it, a lot of cool, just like onion layers to peel back in the overworld and then the underworld. And the game tells you nothing by design. Everything is completely intuited by the player. You pick up these hidden pages of an instruction of a sort of NES style instruction manual, but none of it's in English. None of it's in any language. It's just this sort of game language you're sussing things out with the pictures and the little glyphs that they have. So it's a charming game. It is a difficult game. The music's fantastic. Like it's really one of the best old school meets new school games I've played in a long, long time. Even if it doesn't challenge your system's technical prowess,
Sure. Okay. Those are some picks for the best games you can play on your PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X this year so far. Of course, there's still much more to come to be excited for later on in the year. We had the results of last week's poll from the last episode. Of course, there was a Ubisoft presentation that's coming up in September. We asked, what Ubisoft game are you most excited to see? And Ryan will be happy to hear that the winning result was the Splinter Cell remake. Unfortunately, though, for Ubisoft, coming in last place with just 6% of the votes was Skull and Bones, the long in development multiplayer pirate game that was just sort of, it finally just got a confirmed release date for this year, coming out in November. Just I think the day before God of War Ragnarok. So I don't know. They're gonna have it's gonna be a hard sell for Ubisoft to probably get people on board, if you will, with Skull and Bones. A poll for you to vote on for next week's episode. What is the best game you've played on PS5 or Xbox Series X this year? Is it Elden Ring? Is it Horizon Forbidden West? Is it the next-gen version of Cyberpunk 2077? Make sure to vote at IGN.com, and we'll share the results with you not next week, the week after that. We're actually going to be off next week because next week is Comic-Con. We're packing up all of our stuff, taking it down to San Diego, and we'll be live streaming there with a 2-day live show. So make sure you tune into that on IGN.com, our YouTube channel, and even on our social platforms for all the latest goings on in the world of movies, TV, and some video game stuff too. And that's going to do it for this edition of Next Gen Console Watch. Thank you to both Ryan and Jonathan. Thank you to Alan working behind the scenes to make this episode possible. My name is Damon, and we'll be back in 2 weeks with more PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X news. We'll see you then.